Hello, I'm Raul Bally, politics reporter with WABE. Welcome to the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young debate series from the studios of Georgia Public Broadcasting. This is the primary debate for the Republicans running for the Congressional District 2. Let's meet the candidates. They are, in alphabetical order, Chuck Hand, a construction superintendent and vice chair of Taylor County's Republican Party. Wayne Johnson was a senior official in the Trump administration and worked in finance for 30 years. Regina Liparoto is a media consultant and event coordinator, along with being a voiceover artist. And Michael Nixon served in the Air Force. Michael Nixon served in the Air Force and Navy for more than 10 years and is a director of a rural hospital. Now let's meet our panelists. Laura Corley is a civic journalism fellow with the Macon Newsroom. Sofi Gratas is a Macon-based reporter for Georgia Public Broadcasting. And Prabhu covers government and politics for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. For complete rules of today's program, please visit the Atlanta Press Club website, atlantapressclub.org. To start the debate, each candidate will be asked one question by a specific panelist. Candidates have 60 seconds to answer their question. We're going to start off with Prabhu. She gets the first question to Reggie Liparoto.
Ms. Liparoto, you refer to abortion as an intrinsic evil. How do you balance the belief of many Georgians that life begins at conception with the many Georgians who use in vitro fertilization to start families?
Well, good question. Thank you for asking me that. I am pro-life, and I know that what defines us as a woman is our womb and the ability to produce human life and continue to give back to this earth. In many ways, we are now being used as political pawns. Our bodies, our wombs, our tiny humans are being used as political pawns, forgetting about the woman who she really is. They don't really care about our reproductive rights. In the pro-abortion movement, I believe strongly that the woman, we need to be kinder to people who are thinking even about that. Give them the options, let them know and educate them. It is not birth control. And it is a difficult time for some women, and it's a joyous time for others. So I think the evil part of it comes in when the money, the wealth that comes in from that industry for pro-abortion, those people are so rich, and they really don't care about our reproductive rights. They care about how much money they can make, and that's where I feel the evil is. And I think there's so many beautiful options. For so many people that really would love to have children, want to have children, and for those of those that are in fear or finances or things that are going to get in the way with their health, those are all that should be kind and generous to working with them as a woman, the whole woman. Thank you.
Laura Corley, a question to Chuck Hand, please.
Mr. Hand, you maintain the 2020 election was stolen despite this being demonstrably untrue. Do you trust that this election will be free and fair?
I'm over here. But right out of the gate, huh? Sure, I'll bite. Let me say to start with that it is a shame that I have to even answer a question to this magnitude with fear. Fear of further persecution and prosecution for my own beliefs. But to answer your question, 2020 was stolen unequivocally and absolutely yes. I'm gonna leave it at that.
What gives you faith in this election? What's different?
I have faith that our state legislative body has put together a bill that puts safeguards in place that's gonna help us with some of the main issues that we had in the last election.
Thank you so much. Sofi Gratas, please ask your question to Michael Nixon.
Mr. Nixon, on your campaign website, you say you're committed to fighting for fair policies that uplift marginalized communities. I'm curious what communities you're referring to here.
Absolutely. Well, I'm referring to the communities of District 2 in Georgia. District 2 is one of the poorest districts in the state of Georgia, and so we need to revitalize that whole entire district. And I plan to be the voice for District 2, so that way their issues are heard, and we put vigor back in that community. We get people to stay in that community. We get people to build in that community, because if you're not building, you're dying. So we need to build back a better future for District 2, and I'm going to make that happen.
Thank you so much. And the final question in this round will be asked by Maya. Maya, your question to Wayne Johnson.
Mr. Johnson, you've said the Department of Education is an example of a federal agency that you see as being unnecessary. Why the Department of Education, and what role do you think the federal government should play in public education?
Well, that's a great question for me to take a stab at. Not take a stab at, actually take a stance on. I was the #3 person of the United States Department of Education. I was appointed by Secretary DeVos, confirmed by President Trump, and I saw firsthand just the wastefulness that would go on and the manner in which the Department of Education would go about putting out block grants. Also, as we well know, the Department of Education runs the federal student loan system, and we've got $110 billion worth of money that's going out, 85% of which will never be repaid. So to answer your question, there's just a tremendous amount of wastefulness. And then also we get into the issue that they're trying to dictate policy that in the way in which our children should be educated. Our children need to be, how they're educated needs to be decided on by parents at the local level and with support from the federal government from financial resources when necessary.
Thank you so much. And that concludes the first round. We now move to the second round, where candidates will ask a question of the opponent of their choice. Now, in this round, the questions are going to be 30 seconds from the candidates, 60-second response, and then, if needed, a 30-second rebuttal. We start with Michael Nixon. Mr. Nixon, a question to the candidate of your choice.
Absolutely, and I appreciate your Rahul. And also, thank you for being here. I would like to say a quick thank you to our panelists as well. Chuck, I have a question for you. And so, over the last several years, Article 5 has been brought up a lot. It's been brought up a lot in the campaign trail. Do you support Article 5 constitutional convention efforts? And if so, why or why not?
Yes, I do. Mr. Nixon, y'all, he's referring to a video I made a while back where I took a sound clip of him where he was out here on the trail using my name and talking poorly of myself. So what I did was put together a video to set an example to him to, for lack of better words, keep my name out of his mouth. And we're going to leave it at that.
30 seconds for Mr. Nixon for any kind of rebuttal.
Absolutely. I believe that Chuck Hannah is referring to a House bill in Georgia. I was referencing Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution, something a congressman should know, which means that 2/3 of the state legislators could actually ratify or propose an amendment such as term limits. So it gives power back to the states, which I'm very dedicated and passionate about, returning sovereignty back to the states as much as possible and getting rid of power at the federal level. But I do appreciate you mentioning the video that you did as a third grader on my behalf.
Our next question will be from Wayne Johnson to the opponent of your choice. Mr. Johnson.
Yes, my question is for Mr. Nixon, and I do want to thank each of the other candidates for being part of this process, and I definitely want to thank, the Loudermilk Young Series and the very capable reporters for being here, and yourself as well. Mr. Nixon, in terms of financial resources and organizational structure, what do you think it will be required to win over in November against Sanford Bishop? And then also, how do you intend to marshal these resources?
Absolutely, and that is a fantastic question, Wayne. I know that you've brought up several times that you have the financial resources to win over Bishop. However, this is the first presidential election that we have since the district has been redistricted. And so we've got Thomas County, we've got Warner Robins, and we've got Robins Air Force Base. I believe that, yes, we need finances to help overthrow Bishop, but that is not the only thing that we need to make a win and a victory for District 2. I'm going to join and every county's GOP. We're going to door knock. We're going to bring grassroots back to District 2, and we're going to knock on the doors. We're going to bring in fence riders, independents, and Democrats to vote against Sanford Bishop, because he has to live with everything that the Biden agenda has pushed down our throats in District 2. So we're going to unify District 2 on both sides of the House, because both sides of the House want and need change. And so, yes, it does take a little finances, but that is not all it takes. It takes hard work, it takes effort, it takes grassroots door knocking, and my campaign is making it happen, and we will make it happen, and we're going to dethrone Sanford Bishop, and I'm going to be responsible for making him retire.
Mr. Johnson, 30 seconds if you would like.
Well, first of all, I do believe that that was a great answer to the question. And whichever of us winds up being the nominee to go up against Sanford Bishop, we're going to have to tap into all those resources as well. Chris West, a nod to him. He did a great job last time, taking on Sanford, but he fell short because he didn't have the financial resources to get across the goal line. Make no mistake about it, it will take between $3 and $5 million to take out Sanford. We're standing here today not as people trying to win the primary and then by virtue be your nominee. We've got to basically prevail against Sanford.
Reggie Liparoto, question for the candidate of your choice.
My question goes to Chuck Hand. First of all, I want to say that to become a candidate today, it's a blood sport out there, and so I appreciate, respect that everybody on this panel wanted to be here and become a candidate in the race for Congress. Chuck, you had something happen to you and your wife that no American should have to happen to them. And you have based your campaign on that arrest on January 6th. How does that translate into what the people in the 2nd District are waking up and thinking and worrying and trying to make a living out of every day?
Good question, Ms. Reggie, and I'm glad you asked it. For starters, my campaign is not based on January 6th. The only reason January 6th ever comes up in my campaign is so that you three cannot throw it in my face. The people of Southwest Georgia are not going to hire me for this job because of my memorization skills on potential policy change. The people of Southwest Georgia are going to hire me for this job because I'm one of them, because I represent them, because that's what the job requires. It's a job of representation, and we're choosing who's going to represent the working class people of Southwest Georgia. Y'all can keep the political talk and all. The people are going to hire me because of what I stand for and what I fight for.
Ms. Liparoto, you have 30 seconds if you wanted to rebut anything in there.
I'm the only woman in this campaign. There's never been a woman to ever try to take this seat. And thinking of visiting every single county, but I'm out on the ground talking to, I see women everywhere, ranchers, small business owners, farmers, and they are struggling and working every day for that. And they deserve to be recognized and brought forth on their struggles and what they want to do each and every day. And I'm going to make that happen in 2nd District.
And to wrap up this round, the final question of our second round, Chuck Hand, a question to the candidate of your choice.
My question is for Ms. Liparoto. With you and I being the only candidates in this race that actually live in this district and the only candidates in this race that can cast a ballot for ourselves, I'd rather yield this time back to you instead of our opponents. Can you tell us more about your upcoming book, its contents, and its release date?
Oh, wow. Well, thank you for asking that, Chuck. Well, I put my heart and soul into volunteerism and working as hard at anything that I believe in, as passionate as I do. And I collected my uncle's letters from home from World War II when he was with the Graves and Registration Division. And so working with PTSD and soldiers, veterans, my husband being one of those, I saw in all of his letters what he was trying to get a voice out for years. And I finally had a woman that I worked with in television for years. She actually put it into writing and made his book, His Voice for the Graves and Registration Division and PTSD Sufferers, a reality. It is not a self-published book. It's published. It's called Your Forgotten Sons. And that's how he signed his letters. And I continue to volunteer and work to help prevent veteran suicide and also their families that have to live with people that served with PTSD. Thank you.
Mr. Hand, you have 30 seconds here if you
I want to
wanted to
respond to the farming comment she made right before this. Use this opportunity for that. I speak for a lot of people in our district. Of course, we have to do more for our farmers. But I'm telling you, us working class folks are tired of hearing about it. What about the framers, the welders, mechanics, nurses, and teachers? Okay. We've got to do more for all of the working class people of Southwest Georgia, not just the farmers. Thank you.
And that concludes our second round. You're watching the primary debate for the Republican candidates running for the 2nd Congressional District. We're now going to go back to our panel, who will ask questions to the candidate of their choice until we run out of time. As a point of moderator privilege, I may also ask some questions to the candidates, and I'll also determine when a rebuttal is necessary. We'll start with Sofi Gratas, a question to the candidate of your choice.
I'm actually going to ask another question for Mr. Nixon. You work at a rural hospital, and you've also said that you want affordable health care. Does that mean that you would work at the federal level to encourage states like Georgia that have not expanded Medicaid to do so?
Well, I do work in a hospital, and one of the things that saddens me horribly is years ago when Obamacare came, it enacted a lot of regulations and red tape. And it took a lot of physicians that had family practices, and they weren't able to keep the cost going for their family practice to meet the demands of the Affordable Care Act. And because of that, a lot of the hospitals had to purchase these clinics. And I would like to actually give the communities back their family doctors, their family physicians, the family health practices that they need to keep the heartbeat of these communities going. Right now, our hospital takes a family approach, and I am extremely proud of it. However, many hospitals do not, and many clinics that are bought by these organizational hospitals that try to turn a profit take advantage of the communities because people can't afford Affordable Care Act, and physicians can't run their own clinics because they cannot afford to do so. So at a federal level, I would absolutely make those changes.
Mr. Nixon, just a quick follow-up, though. Do you believe that expanding Medicaid would make a difference in what's happening to hospitals outside of the metro Atlanta area?
I believe that expanding Medicaid would only more or less put a Band-Aid on the solution because right now, if we actually revamp the health care at what we had, that is a much larger approach to fixing the solution than just expanding Medicaid.
Laura Corley, a question for the candidate of your choice.
Mr. Hand, District 2 covers a huge swath of Georgia. Lots of folks here that, it's a district so large and clearly includes people who won't vote for you. What is your plan for connecting with those constituents?
People that won't vote for me. Seems like you know a lot, Ms. Laura. Well, to start with, let me say this. The people that I'm talking to out here, the working class people of Southwest Georgia, they will no longer be distracted or divided by race, religion, and political party lines. Our working class movement aims to unite us all with the common goal of common small government, common sense small government. That's what the working class people of Southwest Georgia want. We don't care about D's and R's. We don't care about your sexual preference, orientation, your feelings, any of those things. We're worrying about what we got left over out of our paychecks. And that's what the people are concerned about. That's all they care about, is surviving, the survival of the people of Southwest Georgia. I yield back.
Maya Prabhu, a question to the candidate of your choice.
This question is for everyone. Congress recently approved a spending package that included foreign aid. Would you have voted for that spending package, and why or why not? And we can start with Mr. Johnson.
I would not have voted for that package as it was presented. I believe that the elements of foreign aid included in that package should have been broken down into, which particular problem we were trying to solve. Instead, it was packaged as a bundle, and consequently, some things got put in there that never should have been put in there.
Ms. Liparoto?
You said me?
Yes, for you. She asked the question to everybody, so I'm just going to go down the line.
I mean, legislation is a very tricky, slippery slope sometimes, and in order to reach across the aisles, as they call it, and work together to a united outcome that works for all Americans, we have had to take some minimization within that legislation, and there's some caveats in there that everybody doesn't understand, and they're thousands of pages long, or however, and do we ever get some things accomplished because we have to satisfy somebody else's greater need. So I don't know that I voted for it. I make sure I'd read everything thoroughly and understand what the people of the 2nd District and how that would affect them. For instance, Sanford Bishop puts in his legislation these regulations that has a stranglehold on our farmers, and everybody likes to eat, but the right hand that feeds us is being cut off to take care of a smaller group of people. That should have never been in that legislation. That should be in some other form of legislation. And that's my best way to answer that question. We have to be really, really aware of what's going on in legislation and pay attention to what's happening and how's it going to affect each county, each person, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. In the 2nd District.
Mr. Nixon.
Absolutely. Well, would I have voted for it? Absolutely not. Let me make that clear. I'm going to say it again. I would not have voted for this bill because this bill takes advantage of every taxpayer, not just in District 2, not just in Georgia, but this bill takes advantage of every taxpayer in the United States of America. This is our hard-earned dollars that we're wasting on these frivolous omni bills that are passing. We need to get back to, or we need to start with line item issues. You're having 1,000-page bills come straight off the press. They're so hot and warm by the time you're voting on them, people have no chance to actually read what's in them. And that just ends up in frivolous spending. And I'm a fiscally responsible candidate. We need to stop bills like this. We need to get the budget in order. We don't need to just keep kicking it down the road. We need to make our kids and our grandkids and our great-grandkids inherit something that is actually fiscally doable and not the mess that we have now. So no, I would not have supported this bill.
Mr. Hand, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Absolutely not.
It's a hard no. Again, I'm not here to bedazzle you with political jargon, so I'm gonna keep it a little more relatable to the people out there casting the votes. Simply put, you can't spend money that you don't have. That is a problem that our federal government has. We continue to write checks that we can't cash. We continue to steal from our children and grandchildren to fund these ridiculous bills. I think we need to take a pause in a little bit of legislation, not sign so many new bills, but start rescinding some bills. That's really what I aim to do, is shrink federal government size. Our federal government has outgrown itself, and we're paying for it. Our children are paying for it. Our grandchildren are paying for it, and it must stop.
I want to follow up with this question because Mr. Johnson and Mr. Nixon both mentioned that there were multiple bills put into here. Mm-hmm. Is there, more general, instead of asking specifically about Israel, Ukraine, or Taiwan, maybe a bigger question, starting with Mr. Johnson, is there a role for foreign aid from the United States, yes or no, or what is that role?
Well, yes, there is a role for foreign aid. Foreign aid is a form of international diplomacy. I spent a lot of time in South America, and I know that if we do not provide elements of aid to South America, China will. And so consequently, we're in a little bit of an international race to see who can win the most favor, but we got to put limits on, just what's the price tag for that favor.
Mr. Hand, I'm going to go the other way around. Mr. Hand, your general thoughts, is there a role here for foreign aid, or back to what you just said?
Again, Mr. Rowe, thank you for the question, but again, you can't spend what you don't have. It's as simple as that. People need help out there, and by all means, they have my prayers, but they don't have my dollar because I don't have the dollar to give.
Mr. Nixon.
Absolutely. Is there a role for foreign aid? Well, first, we have to take an American-first approach, and I am strongly American-first. I believe that we should take care of the issues here at home before we start looking at Ukraine and all the frivolous spending that we're giving to them. Now, Israel, I am very pro-Israel. Israel was our ally for many, many years, and we should never walk back on Israel. When it comes to Israel, you have to pick a side, but I will tell you the God of Israel will win, and I stand with Israel, and America should stand with Israel, and this administration shouldn't walk back from Israel. And so when it comes to foreign aid, you need to take care of America first. Israel is our ally, and so that's already in the bucket. These other countries, we shouldn't be paying for Pakistan's infrastructure. We shouldn't be just giving money out overseas just frivolously. This is a waste of taxpayer money. We should not be doing it. We should not give foreign aid to countries that have a medium income that's equal or higher to what we have right here in the U.S. of A. I would be ashamed to walk back to my district and tell them that I spent their hard-earned money overseas to some kind of frivolous country that just wanted it to go party.
Ms. Liparoto, 1 minute just on the
Thank you for the
idea of
question.
the role
Thank you
of
for the opportunity. America First, of course, throughout history, the history of the United States, we have supported efforts overseas in different places. And we all have family members way back to the Daughters of the American Revolution that know how what it takes first to make sure America is taken care of. But yes, we have to be out there and help the nations in the world. They look to us. We are the leader. We've always been that way. New World Order coming in, trying to take that away from us. A lot of people don't like that word, but that's what it is. So we have to be careful who's involved with that and who wants the New World Order. If you don't know what that means, I suggest you look up and read a little bit more about it. But we have to look at America first, and we do need to support Israel. It's very important. Israel is the chosen people, and we have to do that. And we also have to look at how it affects us with our enemies and where we need to provide that support so that it takes care of America first and our borders first. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sofi Gratas, a question to the candidate of your choice.
Sure. This is for Mr. Hand. You were speaking just now about how you would like to shrink some of the powers of the federal government, but the federal government is also responsible for funding some major social safety net programs like SNAP. And District 2 has about 22% of people living in poverty, below poverty, and even more kids that fall below that poverty line. I'm curious what your position is on this, and possibly expanding some social services.
Good question. I mean, we do have to help the people that need help, by all means. Again, which is why we need a representative that actually represents the people of this district. When I say that, what I mean is, I know what it's like to make too much money to qualify for food stamps, but not enough money to actually buy food. I do buy used tires and appliances. I can relate to the people of this district. So any programs, regarding that will be a top priority of mine to work on and build more of and increase, no doubt. But like I say, it really just comes back to the representation here. It's a job of representation. We have never had representation that actually represents us, the working class people of Southwest Georgia. And that is my whole intent with this campaign, is to give representation to the people that actually make up our district. I yield back.
I'd like to invoke a rebuttal. Is it appropriate?
I don't think he brought up your name.
Well, he inferred something about economic status.
Okay, I'll grant it for 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. All of us on this stage do not come from points of privilege. Everybody on this stage comes from what it means to earn your dollar and earn your living. I, for one, grew up in a household I didn't know I was poor because my mother made sure that we had what we need. But, I'm one of the few people that has actually eaten tadpole soup, and I'm one of the few people that has been able to be successful as well. So it doesn't take that you're currently working in construction or working as a mechanic to be able to identify, particularly when you come from those points.
Rahul, rebuttal on the same premise?
Let me start going back to Mr. Hand, and I will come back to you. Mr. Hand, is there something you'd want to follow up on that?
I'd just like to say that that's mighty rich coming from the candidate who last weekend at the district convention stated that he owns 5 properties in the district when the delegation asked him about his residence, but him not living in the district. So it's not about what you come from. We all start off in this world with the same blank plate. It's about where you are today. And what I'm saying is that I'm the only candidate on this stage that can accurately represent the people of our district that actually make up our district.
And I will say that, yes, I have vested interest in the district.
Let me let Mr. Nixon on to this. Mr. Nixon, go ahead.
Thank you, Rahul. Well, if I recall, when I graduated high school, my parents could not afford to even send me to college, so I did go in the military, where I proudly served in the Air Force and in the Navy, and I currently still serve in the U.S. Air National Guard. However, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps, and I have earned everything that I have today. The success that I have was through hard work and effort, and I never gave up, and I would never give up on the people of this district. And so they should look at somebody that if I could better myself, I have plans I can better the district. Why would the district choose somebody to better the district if they have not bettered themselves and still say they live in the same situation that they currently live in and have lived in for years?
I'm going to give 2 people the final 2 words. It's not final word. Ms. Liparoto,
Thank you.
30 seconds for
Thank
you,
you.
and then Mr.
I'm a girl
Johnson, then
over
we'll
here.
move on to our next question. 30 seconds for you.
Okay, thank you. So the original question, going back to Chuck on that too, is we need to take care of people. I was a single mom for many years. I've been on food stamps. I am on a fixed income. I know it takes a lot of money to run a campaign, but I'm here because I believe in the people of the 2nd District. It's not limited to our rules. It's also, we have Columbus, Macon, and we have Albany. Albany, Sanford Bishop's district, and it's failing miserably, and the crime is the most violent in the state of Georgia. We have to unfund the defund, and we have to take care of the people that need it, but we have to do it the right way and through legislation.
Mr. Johnson, final word on this.
Well, I think it basically boils down to the fact that each of us can identify with the people of the district. There was a question that was asked earlier about the role of federal government with regard to social support programs. One of the things that I think is incredibly important is for us to understand how to make agencies of the government come to work for the people of the 2nd District.
Going to move on to Laura Corley, a question for the candidate of your choice.
Ms. Liparoto,
Yes.
so you've raised no campaign funds, but you say it takes a lot of campaign money to run a campaign.
Well,
Can you
I
tell
know
me
what
about
it
that?
takes. I know what it takes to run a campaign at the level that Mr. Johnson is running a campaign. I mean, you're really getting a lot of information there. But I don't think that wins campaigns. I think getting on the ground and being with the people and letting them know who you are and your commitment to serving them and listening to them and understanding them. I can relate that to a story where Mr. Bishop was invited to a town hall. The farmers were really worried about some things. They couldn't get him to come, couldn't get him to come. He sent a rep, the man fell asleep and asked for the notes when he left. That's what I'm talking about. I'm there. They know me. I'm boots on the ground, and I'm going to listen to everybody, from the cities to the rural. I'm going to be there for them. That takes gas in my tank. I have had some donations. I make it work, because you know what? I know how to budget.
My name was invoked. She referred to Mr. Johnson. You can actually do both. You can run a very, intensive campaign using all the communication channels available at the same time. I believe I'm the only candidate that's actually visited all 30 counties and spent time listening to the people. So there's nothing to say that you can't do both.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson, for pointing that out to me. Next question comes from Maya Prabhu to the candidate of your choice.
Mr. Hand, if District 2 voters send you to Congress and Republicans maintain control of the House, would you support Mike Johnson for another term as Speaker?
That's a real good question. At this current time, no.
While we're on this question, I'd love to hear your answers for the other two. Again, the question is, assuming you're the Republican nominee, assuming you defeat Sanford Bishop and Republicans are in the majority, would you vote for Mike Johnson for another term? We'll start with Mr. Nixon.
Thank you. Mike Johnson, it's one of those things where we needed unity in the GOP, and this is an election year, and we needed unity more than anything. And we got Mike Johnson to represent the party on the terms that he would represent the Republican Party the way they stood and the values that they stood for. And it seems like he was acting, as of right now, like he's a Democrat in sheep's clothing, because he is not acting in the manner that he was put in place. So would I support Mike Johnson? Absolutely not. I had high hopes for this man whenever he came on board. I thought that he was gonna do great things and help unify the Republican Party, and all he has is he's backpedaled on all the promises that he's made. And we should have a speaker that actually stands firm and stands for the people that put him there and doesn't backpedal on the promises that he has. So no, I would not stand for Mike Johnson. I would hope that we get somebody with a backbone.
Ms. Liparoto, your thoughts on the current Speaker, Mike Johnson?
Absolutely not. No, I just believe that if we're going to be convicted and we're going to stand for what we believe in and what's going to work, and it's those little caveats in the legislation that he's willing to give into that cost us a lot more down the line. And I believe in order to make things come together, he's given up. It just gives up. So no, I would not. Absolutely not.
Wrapping up this round of questions with Mr. Johnson, your thoughts on
Well, at this point in time, President Trump is standing with Mike Johnson. So my answer to that is it's a wait and see. I also want to hear from the people of the 2nd District. I also want to hear from the other members of the Georgia Congressional delegation. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. I do have faith and trust in President Trump. And if he's standing with him right now, I believe that's going to be my answer.
You're watching the candidates, the Republican candidates for 2nd Congressional District. They're debating right now. Early voting begins tomorrow. As we continue asking questions, this question comes from Sofi. Gratas, to the candidate of your choice.
This is going to be for all of the candidates. What is your plan to sprout economic growth in Southwest Georgia? And we can start with Mr. Nixon.
Absolutely, I appreciate you. Also, I would like to say that I had been to all the counties in the district. I've been on the road since October, but District 2, it is phasing out. It is dying. We're having a lot of people that are leaving District 2, and there's a saying that we use in South Georgia: if you're not building, you're dying. And we need to start building back in District 2. We have to take these small businesses and revamp them. We have to take the squares, the downtown squares in these communities, and put vigor back in them, because this is what actually keeps communities going. We have to invest in the people in District 2. We have to make sure that manufacturing and jobs get back in District 2. We have to make sure that District 2 people earn a livable wage and not have to leave the district just because they can't find work in District 2. We have to support our law enforcement so people in District 2 feel safe. And so if somebody feels safe and they have a job, they're not going to leave, and they're going to prosper. And we want them to prosper in District 2. So my plan is to fight for innovation to the farming community, to fight for manufacturing to come back to District 2, and fight for these small businesses to get a rehab back on life.
Laura Corley, a question to the candidate of your choice.
Was that open?
That was for everyone.
Oh, it was for everyone. I apologize.
No worries.
Okay.
We'll just go down the line. Let's
Would you
start
like
with...
to step in first?
Okay, this is not a rebuttal.
No, ma'am.
No, okay,
No.
so just to everyone. Same
This question was for
All
everyone.
right,
Would you
so-
like her to repeat the question?
All right, economic growth, right? Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. So if we're looking at economic growth, when we look at the 30 counties, the majority of the counties are rural, and farming is the major income for the counties. And I've been in every one of those counties. I've been to all the counties too. And I can tell you that if the ground's not moving, we're not building, but we still are moving ground to feed this nation. And we cannot let foreigners come in and take over that and invite them in. Generational farmers are losing the battle because of regulations. So ground is moving. We're still feeding this nation and people outside of this nation with Georgia products. So we have to support those farmers. And secondly, Albany has the fastest amount of people leaving that city. They are just diminishing because of the crime, and there are no jobs. What can we do to bring that in? We got to get the crime down. That's why they're leaving. We have to do that. And how about the monkey business in Bainbridge? Does anybody know about that? That affects all of 2nd District. 30,000 sick monkeys coming into Bainbridge in the industrial park.
Thank you so much.
We have to take care of that.
Mr. Johnson?
Well, yes. First of all, you start by making sure that people have the right kind of educational or skills training. And it's not a 4-year degree, it's work skills. One of the biggest needs in the 2nd District, believe it or not, right now is for truck drivers. In order to have truck drivers, we need to have truck driving schools. We need healthcare workers. We need healthcare skills training. I actually myself am investing in Georgetown with a new facility there that will actually support the water sports by the way, it's called Lake George in Georgetown, not Lake Eufaula. And I'm also active in Plains, Georgia, launching a business to build tiny homes to solve 2 problems: give people jobs and also give people a place to live. So the net of it boils down to starting at grassroots level with folks like myself and others that are willing to make a capital investment in the district. And then we got to make sure that the schools are giving job skills training. And then we got to make sure that capital investment is being attracted to the district.
Mr. Rand?
If we want to develop our economy first, we must loosen some regulations and rip through some red tape. We've got to have less regulation and more freedom to operate. The American worker and small business owner, they have enough sense to regulate themselves. They do not need Congress to tell them how to operate their businesses and restrict them. What they need is for Congress to take their hands out from around their neck and let them breathe. And by all means, we must unleash American energy and American oil and drill, baby, drill.
Now, let's hear from Laura Corley with Macon Newsroom with your question for the candidate of your choice.
A quick yes or no for all of you. Are you for or against term limits?
Yes.
Four.
Yes. 4 term limits.
4.
Absolutely.
So we have, to make clear, all 4 of you are
Yes.
for term limits.
Yes.
Any particular amount of time, and we can just House of Representatives, how many terms or how many years?
4 terms for the House.
4 terms?
3
My
terms,
personal
3
opinion-
terms for the Senate.
My personal opinion would be the Senate, keep them at 2 terms, 2
terms.
6-year terms. And the House, let's go ahead and bump those up to 4-year terms and have 3 4-year terms. That's 12 years. That's both Congress or both House and Senate can get 12 years. That gives them the opportunity to work with multiple administrations to better their district, before they pass the torch on. What it also does is it prevents these congressional candidates from winning a race and then campaigning for their next race. That's all they do. They're out here campaigning and telling lies for 2 years straight, over and over. It's a continuous cycle. We've got to fatten that up to 4 years.
To get everybody on camera, Mr. Johnson, just the amount of time. What's the amount of time?
The amount of time is 4 2-year terms. I think we should stay with that, and then 3 Senate terms, which would be 18 years.
I agree with Chuck on those terms. And also, without term limits, we breed corruption and laziness and lackadaisicalness, and that's when we get into trouble. So, yeah, rotating those term limits and giving those people the opportunity for fresh ideas and fresh people facing our issues.
And Mr. Nixon, for you, just focusing on the time.
Absolutely, and one of the first things I did was sign a term limit pledge. But I do agree 4 terms for Congress and 2 terms for Senate is what I would do.
Thank you so much. Maya Prabhu with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, your question for the candidates of your choice.
My question is for Mr. Nixon.
Yes.
Oftentimes, incumbents, when they are running for re-election, they discuss what they've done for the district, and a lot of times that includes money that they brought to the district. What are your thoughts on earmarks in budgets?
Well, you have to have certain earmarks in budgets just because you have to, you have to spend money to make things happen. Now, in terms of Sanford Bishop, I think he spent more money at the country club really than in the district itself. So he's got that along with other things to answer for. Now, myself, I believe that you should be able to have certain earmarks within your district just to be able to help and revitalize your district, because that's what you're there to do. You're there to pass bills and to control the budget at Congress. You're there to help the military at Congress, but you're also there to be the voice and to help people of your district. So you need to be able to accomplish those goals, and you need to be in the district and making it accomplish. You don't need to hide from the district in D.C. or at some country club outside the district. And so my job when I get there is going to do basically everything Sanford Bishop is not doing and show up for the people of District 2.
Sofi Gratas with Georgia Public Broadcasting, the question of your choice to the candidates of your choice.
This is for Mr. Johnson. You've said you're pro-life, but I'm curious if you believe in a federal ban on abortion. And the second part of that is, do you believe in any exceptions to abortion bans having to do with medical emergencies, incest, or rape?
Well, you ask a question that hits very specifically to my heart. I do not believe in a federal ban on abortion. I believe it should be at a state level. And yes, there are conditions in which abortion should be allowed. Our daughter recently, about 2 years ago, had what's called an atopical pregnancy, which meant that she was pregnant in her fallopian tube. She lived in Louisiana. She lives in Louisiana. The doctors were so afraid of being put in jail that they did not operate on her until her fallopian tube burst and she lost her fallopian tube. So yes, there are medical conditions that absolutely have to be taken into consideration, and we've got to be mature enough to understand that as a people.
Thank you.
Next question comes from Laura Corley. Laura, the question to the candidate or candidates of your choice.
Mr. Nixon.
Yes.
What do you see as Georgia's biggest challenge over the next decade?
Oh, Lord. All right, Georgia's biggest challenge of the next decade, I believe that we have several. One, and this is something that really encompasses every state, but it's big on Georgia, is we need to get the education from the federal level and bring it down to Georgia. We need to have school vouchers for the parents of Georgia, so that way they can actually pick the schools that their kids go to and get them away from the current federal public education system that we have. We need transparency back in education. Another thing is we need to help our farmers. We need to help the agricultural community. Right now we have bills on paper that is so much red tape and hoops to jump through. We are hurting the farmers, not helping the farmers. And when we hurt the farmers, we hurt every Georgian in this room. And we have many farmers in Georgia. So I would help the farming community, and I would definitely help the education that we have in Georgia and completely revamp it and get it back to the state level as quickly as possible.
Maya Prabhu, a question to the candidate or candidates of your choice.
We heard from Mr. Hand earlier about if he were to win, how to unite the closely divided, politically divided district that still leans slightly Democratic. And so if you were elected, how would you bring the community together? And we can start this. I was curious what everyone else had to think, and start with Mr. Johnson.
Yes. First of all, we've got to explain to the Democratic voters why voting Republican is not necessarily a bad thing and could actually be a very good thing. In order to win this election, make no mistake about it, we've got to carry 50,000 people that normally vote Democrat to come across to the Republican side. And those people will be making a decision who to vote for president, which I believe will be President Trump. They'll also be making a decision for congressman, which I hope and expect to be me. But at the end of the day, we got to give them a reason. We got to help them understand that we're absolutely 100% focused on them. And it's not just about the party change, it's also about who is the individual that's going to be representing them.
Ms. Liparoto?
Oh, thank you. When I first decided to go into this race, I had a lot of phone calls and texts and folks that were at the convention with Trump last June. And they said, no, they're talking about you, Reg. And they said, you're the Carrie Lake of Georgia. And I said, wow, what a compliment, but I need to pray on this. I can tell you right now that I've been reaching across that table and talking to a lot of Democrat women that come up to me, that want to talk to me. They're thinking about the change and what's going to mean to them. They ask me a lot of questions, and I'm there for them. Women are voting more and more interested in voting, and they're talking to a woman about how they want to do that. I believe I've reached that threshold. I believe I can make that happen. I believe that women's issues and rights and what we're going through for all levels, that women, at the end of the day, we take care of business and we can make these things happen. So I believe they trust me in that, and I'm going to bring those Democratic voters over.
Mr. Nixon?
Absolutely. Well, I spend a lot of time door knocking in Albany. Albany is a high populated Democrat area. And when I knock on these doors, a lot of these lifelong Democrats, they miss Trump. Their life was better 4 years ago under Trump. They're paying way more for groceries nowadays. $300 worth of groceries used to fit in the back of the trunk, and now it rides in the passenger seat. And so they want Trump policies back. And so I speak with a lot of Democrats. I do a lot of door knocking in these neighborhoods, and I tell them, listen, this election, you have to vote person, not policy. You have to get somebody in there that's going to take care of you. Sanford Bishop has to answer to all the administration's rules and regulations and inflation that has happened and enacted over the last several years, and they don't want that. That is hurting their families. That is hurting their pantries. They want somebody in there to take over Sanford Bishop, and they want a Republican to do it, and they want a Republican that will back Trump in the office and get this country headed in the right direction. And I'm the Republican to back Trump and to make that happen in the House.
Chuck, I know this question was aimed at the other three candidates, but I do want to take 30 seconds if you wanted to add to that.
Well, the biggest thing is relating to the people. That's the biggest task at hand here to me. The voters want a representative that can relate to them, and I believe that they deserve that. They deserve a real, genuine, true, authentic candidate. You know, like a hard-working Georgian applying for a job, not a politician out here looking for a position. And if there's any advice I can give you voters out there, to choose that, who represents you best, look at their hands and their shoes. That'll tell you all you need to know.
So to give, we're kind of running out of time here, so we have time for just one more question for one more candidate. I'm going to ask it to Mr. Nixon. Can you name one vote that you had a concern with, or one vote that would have been different from Sanford Bishop?
Oh, Lord. Well, Sanford Bishop has been very lax on border security. That's something that we actually need to reform. We need to make sure that our border is as tight as possible. We have middle-aged men, we have military-aged men just walking willy-nilly across the border into America. We have an influx of illegal aliens coming into this country. We need to stop people at the border. We don't want another Laken Riley here in Georgia. And Sanford Bishop's lack of security and his lack of voting for border security, it allows things like that to happen, and we cannot have things like that happen, and things like that happen, or things like that will not happen when I'm there, because I'm going to make sure that the border is secure. I'm going to fight tooth and nail to make sure that we secure that border, and we don't have these people running around where we don't know where they are and who they are. We have terrorists that are flooding in from the southern border, and it needs to stop, and it's going to stop, because we're going to get Sanford Bishop out of the House, we're going to put Trump back in the Oval Office, and we're going to build that wall.
That's all the time we have for questions. The candidates will now have 60 seconds for a closing statement. Our first closing statement comes from Chuck Hand.
Look, y'all, I know I'm not what you're used to. I'm not big on the suits and ties and speaking in political tongues. But what you're used to hasn't worked, and it won't work. What you're used to is run this country into the ground. With the current political climate that we live in, with all that's going on, I do believe that I am in fact the right man in the right place at the right time. I am the right person for the job. Honestly, y'all, we've lost this same race for over 150 years straight now. What do you possibly have to lose? Be sure to visit our website at chuckhanfordgeorgia.com and find us on any and all social media. Thank you for your time and consideration, and may God bless Southwest Georgia.
Final statement now from Wayne Johnson for 1 minute.
Trying to find the camera. There it is. Well, the most important question is, what do you have to gain by selecting the right person to be your Republican nominee, the person that has the experience, that has the passion and the commitment. It's all about what we can gain, not what we have to avoid losing. So again, I'm Dr. Wayne Johnson. I'm from Macon, Georgia. I'm looking to be your representative to represent you, everybody from Macon to Thomasville to Bainbridge to Columbus, Americus, Cuthbert, all places in between. So to sum it up, I'm a public servant, or I have been a public servant. I was appointed by President Trump to serve in his administration. Before that, I was a jobs creator. You ask about the district. I've created a number of jobs in the district and around the world. Before that, I was a U.S. Army officer. But the most important thing I can say is I humbly and respectfully ask for you to trust me with your vote and let me be your representative.
Thank you so much. Michael Nixon, your final statement for 60 seconds.
People of District 2, I want you to know my heart is in that district. I got married in that district. My sons went to school in that district. My oldest son, when he graduated to tech school and became a professional welder, he bought his first house in that district. My brother has a large church in Albany, and I love to see that he reaches the people's hearts in that district. Going around campaigning, I've spoken to a lot of people in District 2, and I've made a lot of connections. I'm probably the only candidate that runs around everywhere he goes with his parents, because I have a passionate mom. She's watching this in her living room right now today, and I just wind her up, let her go, and I want to make her just as proud of me as I want to make the people of this district. So God bless you. Vote for Nixon, nixonforgeorgia.com.
Thank you so much. And Ms. Liparoto, your final statement, closing statement for 1 minute.
Look to the left and the right of me, and you see the same candidate that we put in there every single election cycle, everyone, and it doesn't work. We throw it all at him every time. You know, and he does not have any kind of fear about these folks beating him at all, but he's looking at me, and I can tell you why, because I've worked with him before and I know his game. I've been involved in many, many, many community projects. I live in my community, I work, I volunteer there. I am the candidate that can make the difference. It's time to put a woman in there. We're overdue, and we are strong in 2nd District. We need those votes, women. Primary, you can go and vote for me. It's okay, no matter what party you're in, you can vote for me in the primary. And listen, when we get in there, we're gonna make a difference because I am the only one of these candidates that can beat Sanford Bishop in November, and I know how to do that. You can go to Regina Liparoto, Reggie, Georgia, District 2, and see more, learn more about me, but don't forget to vote. Early voting starts tomorrow. Check Regina Liparoto, Reggie for Congress.
Thank you so much to all of the candidates, and that concludes our program. We'd like to remind voters that early voting begins Monday, April the 29th, and Election Day is Tuesday, May 21st. Again, thanks to our candidates and to our panel of journalists, Laura Corley, Sofi Gratas, and Maya Prabhu. We'd also like to thank the Atlanta Press Club and Georgia Public Broadcasting for arranging today's program. For more information about the Atlanta Press Club debates, visit atlantapressclub.org. I'm Raul Bally of WABE News. Thank you so much for joining us for the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series.